Good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Ice. I'm the provost for the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here this evening to the 2025 Ralph Gross Global Lecture. The Ralph Gross Lectures focus on global topics and a broad range of interdisciplinary liberal arts issues. The lecture series was established at the request of the Gross family in honor of Ralph Gross, whose generosity and legacy still resonates at St. John's University. A St. Cloud native and a 1965 St. John's economics graduate, Ralph pursued advanced studies in business and accounting at the University of Minnesota. He began his professional career as a CPA at Arthur Andersen and then went on to become comptroller, part owner, and finally president and CEO of SPS companies in the Twin Cities. Ralph's deep and abiding affection for St. John's was evident in his generosity toward his alma mater, including a gift upon his passing in 2010 that helped establish the Ralph Gross Chair in Business and the Liberal Arts, the Ralph Gross First Generation Scholarship Fund, and the Ralph Gross Global Lecture. His humble, ethical, and trustworthy nature remains an inspiration to his family, friends, and employees. Our heartiest thanks to Ralph's family, many of whom are here this evening with us. I thank you for being here for this event, which honors your brother and uncle's legacy. To begin tonight, I ask Dr. Kevin Clancy, the Assistant Dean of Experiential Learning. Wait a minute, that's the first time I've gotten to use that new title for Kevin, who has been promoted to Assistant Dean for Experiential Education, to introduce tonight's speaker. Kevin?
Well, good evening, everyone. It is truly my great honor to introduce our speaker tonight, Dr. Keshia Abraham. Dr. Abraham is an award-winning educator who is dedicated to transforming global learning through empathy, equity, and connection. As founder of Agency Unlimited, she empowers organizations, institutions, and individuals to embrace ASHE. That's appreciation, seeing, honoring, and engaging the global majority. Dr. Abraham brings decades of teaching and leadership experience, recently serving as academic dean, tenured associate professor, and director of education abroad at Florida Memorial University in HBCU in Miami, Florida. Her career and scholarship reflect a commitment to nurturing inclusive learning environments and fostering cultural understanding. Like many of you gathered here tonight, Dr. Abraham herself got started with study abroad. And at an early age, she studied abroad in both middle and secondary school. Her journey into international education got supercharged at Spelman College, where she studied abroad at the University of Zimbabwe and witnessed post-apartheid South Africa. This study abroad program deeply impacted her perspective on justice, resilience, and community. Motivated by these study abroad experiences, she pursued a PhD in comparative literature with an emphasis in popular education. Dr. Abraham is a two-time Fulbright Scholar and Fulbright Alumni Ambassador, with her scholarship published globally in journals, books, and museum exhibitions. Her writing challenges narratives, invites reflection, and fosters transformative dialogue. Recognized for her visionary leadership, Dr. Abraham received the 2022 Peter A. Wolitzer Award from the Forum on Education Abroad. Through global well-being retreats, workshops, and international JEDI, Justice and Equity with Dignity and Intention initiatives, Dr. Abraham continues to inspire changemakers to lead with compassion, integrity, and to have a commitment to justice. We are truly honored to welcome Dr. Abraham to campus to share her leadership, inspiration, and vision for what global education can be. Will you please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dr. Abraham to the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University. Welcome to you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. I am so grateful and so honored to be here today, especially to be here in this capacity, to be able to celebrate and acknowledge the legacy of someone who has left so much for so many here in this region. So I really thank you all so much for the invitation, for the warm welcomes, for the wonderful introductions. Today we're going to talk a little bit about joy. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah? All right, great. I'm happy about that. We start so many conversations in academic spaces, like kind of unjoyfully. And I think we can just change all of that. I think we start from the very beginning, really recognizing the value of joy in the way we learn. So I'm going to talk through this in a couple of different ways. We have the formal slides, I have the formal notes, and occasionally looking at your faces, I'll probably say something that I didn't intend to say because there's something in there is suggesting that I talk about it. And so I hope that's all right with you all as well. I want this to be a very interactive experience. Hopefully I will also get you talking to your neighbors a little bit. And I will ask, let's see, I'm going to find some, yes, my friend with the lovely Nike logo on your sweatshirt. Yes, thank you, friend. Let me know if I'm talking too fast. Let me know if I'm talking too slow. Yeah, thank you, friend. All right. So this is my very first time being in this region in this kind of a way, and I'm very, very honored by the legacies on which I stand. I am enormously grateful for the ancestors whose lives and work we get to carry on when we connect like this, to deepen our collective wisdom and grow greater futures together. I give thanks for the lives and the legacies of the Shoshone, the Menominee, the Sioux, and my father's people, the Monongahela, together with those who hail from all across Africa, Europe, Asia, the Caribbean, and each and every land of power, privilege, hope, and possibility represented here tonight. I thank all of you and your ancestors for the possibility of us being here in this way together today. I want to start us off a little bit with some breath, with our breath. Some of us aren't breathing right now. We don't even realize it. Yeah, some of us are not thinking about our breath. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to get fancy with the slides, and we're going to go into a little breathing exercise. This is something that many of us take for granted, but I think it's something that is so essential that calls us back to our true selves with every mention of its presence, our breath. With every mention of its presence, it calls us back to its presence. Where are you breathing right now? How are you breathing right now? What is the quality of your breath right now? I'm going to ask you to just take a moment. And before we even do this exercise that you see on the screen, we're going to take a moment and bring our awareness to the quality of our breathing first. Just be aware of how you are breathing. Pay attention to it. No judgment. No judgment. I know I said some of us aren't breathing. That's okay. We want to just really feel it. Feel how we're feeling in this moment. Feel how your body's seated. If you need to make adjustments so your body can feel more comfortable, so your breath can flow, let's do that. So here we're going to do this. We're going to take 3 deep breaths like this. I'll demonstrate. We'll do it together. So take a deep inhale through your nose. And exhale completely. You can go through your mouth. We'll do that again. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth if you like. One more like that, and then we're going to do this. Inhale. And relax. Pay attention to anything in your body that you're holding on to that you don't need to. Relax your shoulders, relax your back, relax your body. Now inhale, and we'll count to 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, nose or mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Exhale completely. Again, inhale deeply. 2, 3, and 4. Hold your breath. 2, 3, and 4. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Last one. Inhale deeply, really deeply. Feel the breath from your belly. Move up into your chest. Move up into your heart. Maybe even the crown of your head. Hold your breath. Exhale completely. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And release. If you've had your eyes closed and your head's looking down, it's okay. Shake your head a little bit. Look down a little bit. And then take a moment and we will meet with the edges of our lips turned up. Great. Thank you. What was missing from the intro a little bit is that I also teach Ayurveda and yoga. And I used to hide. This is why I'm giving this to you guys today. I used to hide. I used to be so embarrassed. I used to be so embarrassed, right? As a professor, as a faculty member, talking about this yoga and this Ayurveda thing and this relax and this breathing thing all the time. And then I realized that we needed it. Everybody needed it. All of our students needed it. All of us as faculty needed it. All of us as administrators needed it. And so I started bringing it into more and more of my practices. I get joy from breath. We get joy from our breath. We get joy from breathing. And so I think it's something many of us in this room probably have contemplative practices. And we may put those to the side because we're focused on our academics. I just want to give some space for permission for us to recognize the value of our breathing, the value of being present with our breath and with each other. And that's a lot of the source of this joy. So we are going to be bringing our joy back. Part of the reason for this topic also was that I was working on a presentation a while ago, just after the dreaded thing that we try not to talk about, but it is in all of our lives on a regular basis. Yes, COVID, yes, the pandemic. I was working on a piece then that was about bringing the body back. Right? First, I was thinking about what aspects of us do we need to bring back into the classroom? What aspects of us we need to bring back on campus? And how do we do it? It seemed like we were all in a rush to just show up, but we weren't really being thoughtful about how are we showing up, which led me to then thinking about, okay, if we brought the bodies back and we've been here now, we've been doing this for a little while, where's the joy? I don't know if we're all been intentional about the joyful lives that some of us have had during that time back into how we were educating each other and ourselves, right? We did things. A lot of us did things during that time that helped us free ourselves from a lot of the things that kind of weigh us down on a regular basis. A lot of us found our way to eating more regularly, right? A lot of us found our way into nature more regularly. So I want to suggest that we think about bringing the joy back with our bodies as we begin to kind of move into this new phase of educating the world. You see this quote on the screen, this Toni Morrison line, if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. If you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. Does anyone know where this comes from? In a room of educated people, I figure out just before I tell you things, I'll ask you. Does anyone know where this comes from? This line from Toni Morrison's work. Okay, let me back up. Toni Morrison. Is Toni Morrison familiar to people? Yeah? Great. Some heads in the back are like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Friend. Where's my friend? Oh, you took off your sweatshirt, but I found you. Okay, Toni Morrison? Familiar? A little bit? Okay, good. Thank you. That's the kind of feedback I need. So Toni Morrison, Pulitzer Prize, amazing winner, amazing writer, hailed as one of the greatest minds of the 21st century. Literally, it's not my opinion. Other people decided this. Brilliant writer. This particular line comes from the novel Song of Solomon. It's in this beautiful section in which this young man is really struggling, trying to figure out what his own identity is, what makes him unique, what makes him different from his family, what makes him really feel powerful in the world. And this was one of the things that his ancestors revealed to him. I'm sharing this with you in this way because it's also part of what we do when we're cultivating the possibility of studying abroad. This is a time in our lives in which we recognize the flying part, but we don't always think about what is it that's weighing us down? What is it that is separating us from the experience that we want to have or the experience we want our students to have and the current experience that we're actually living in? What is it that separates us from that reality? So on this day, I wanted to suggest that we use this time to build upon this in hopefully some interesting ways. So you heard me talk earlier, you heard Sir Kevin explain earlier, Dr. Clancy explain earlier, the idea of ASHE. ASHE is a word that originally comes from the Yoruba tradition. Is that familiar to anyone? Yoruba tradition, okay? So ASHE is a word that comes from the Yoruba tradition as a word. So I'm not, as much as you will hear lots of acronyms being used with and around my work, I don't love them. I kind of really struggle with the idea that we've moved to acronyms over words so much. It's not joyful to me. Acronyms are not joyful. So I had to find a way of making them more joyful because I can't, we're not going to let go of that, right? We now live in an acronym-driven world. I tried. I really did. I still don't have Twitter, right? Because I was like, I just, whole sentences. So anyway, ASHE. I needed a word that was an actual word. I wanted an acronym that kind of could speak to what is it that we actually want. When we think about the world that we actually want to live in, the thing that we're all actually striving for, we use lots of other words for it. We use, there's 3 letters that are kind of unpopular in the US right now. I'll say the first begins with a D. The first letter is a D. The last one is an I. You can figure it out yourself. That's not really what it's about. It's not about any of the things that we get caught up with in that acronym. This is what it's actually about. This is what we're actually striving for. Everyone deserves and needs this, to feel a sense of ASHE. The Yoruba concept of ASHE is similar to the idea of Ubuntu, which is a term that comes from the Zulu. The idea that I see you. I see you, twins. I see you, twins. Yes, I see you and you see me, right? And I appreciate see, hear, and engage you. I want to be able to do that with you. Every time that we don't do this with one another, it could be anywhere. It could be in the grocery store, it could be in the cafeteria, it could be anywhere. It could be in your dorm room, it could be while you're studying abroad and you're in the airport, right? Anywhere. This is an opportunity for us to experience our humanity with one another. And so I want to encourage you to figure this out, to look at it, to live with it, and to embrace it. Not necessarily as the original concept, but I think it comes by its very nature. The more we do this, the more the nature of what ASHE was intended to create resonates in each of us. So as we talk about the necessity of joy, I want to talk about how it is revolutionary. Joy is not something to be taken for granted. It is a necessity. Joy is revolutionary. Joy is provocative. It is as much a human right as global learning is. Some of us may not have thought about studying abroad or global learning as a human rights issue, but it really is. This is the way that we can cut through everything. This is the way that we can cut through the things that determine some passports as more valuable than others. This is the thing, right, that can cut through the cost of visas for one place over another, that are really just kind of questions of somebody else's decision, not really being able to look at the possibilities that come with everyone having the ability to travel as part of their educational journey. I think it's something that usually I tell students, you haven't actually finished college until you've studied abroad. Sorry, I know, some of y'all are like really close, I know. Some of you guys are like, what do you mean? I am like about to graduate any day now and I didn't study abroad. That's okay, that's how we have Fulbright. But it really is important. It is a thing that will separate you from the rest of the world and from the opportunity to learn who you are. Earlier tonight, even while we were sitting having dinner, we were talking a little bit about why did I have 2 Fulbrights? What was my first Fulbright and what happened in it? I told the story in the way that I usually tell the story when we're talking about the Fulbright experience itself, not the personal journey, but I want to give you that a little bit now because I think it fits where we are. When I applied for a Fulbright, I didn't know the first Fulbright, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. It's not also something you're supposed to say, right? When you finish your PhD, people tell you you're supposed to know. I didn't. I really just didn't. I knew I wanted to keep studying what I was studying, and I wanted to teach what I was teaching, but I didn't know for sure where that was going to lead me. I just knew that there was more that I needed to learn. I knew that I wasn't done yet. So I applied for my first Fulbright when I was finishing the writing of my PhD dissertation, which may sound nuts to some of you guys. You're like, you're almost done with school, and then you like applied for more school? Yes, I did. Because I realized that the education I needed was not something that I was going to find in a classroom. I needed to find it in the world. So that initial Fulbright sent me to Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing, like I said, nothing could have prepared me for what I was going to experience on that Fulbright journey. Nothing. At the graduation dinner for my PhD, and you bring different generations of family together for this thing because it matters sometimes to people more than it matters to you. An older uncle was there. We're casually having dinner. The man says to me, so where are you going next? I'll let you finish your degree. Where are you going next? I said, well, I'm going to Jamaica to study. He said, oh, casually. The man was just eating his food. He said, oh, your grandfather was from Jamaica. I said, no, he's not. My grandfather was from Louisiana. He said, I don't, he was from Jamaica. My mother said, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about, whatever. You know, he's like, she does all the signs, like all the things. You're like, Mom, he might know something. So it sat in the back of my head. I was thinking about it, right? I get to Jamaica and I find my mother's maiden name in phone directories in Kingston. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't expect to find that here. But it still didn't really resonate with me. I still was kind of like, oh, this is interesting, but I don't really know where this is going. I went to live in the countryside, way out in the countryside, and this is part of what a Fulbright journey gives you the opportunity to do. Find your research where it is, right? So I'm staying about 45 days, 45 of the rainiest days of my entire life. It probably rained 36 of those 45 days. And every day, I'm looking out of the window at this beautiful hill. Every day, it was 3 hills together, one in the middle, and every day I'm looking out of the window, seeing this thing. I turned to the woman who was hosting me, and I said, but Miss Lixie, what is that over there? She said, oh, honey, that's Louisiana. I said, what? She said, yeah, that's Louisiana. You don't have a Louisiana in Jamaica. She said, yeah. And we could drive there now before we take you to Kingston. So we got in the car, we drove to Louisiana. I'm driving around Louisiana. I go in the phone book. But we went to Lady's house. I looked phone book. My people's names were in there. That is where my father's people came from. From there, the entire time I was in Jamaica, in that region, I was having more just thoughts, more connection to ancestral memory than I'd had in a very long time. I'm not saying this to say that this is what's going to happen in your Fulbright, but I'm saying there is so much about the joy, about the ASHE, about the who we are meant to be that we will never know until we leave the places we came from and have a new experience that is only ours. There's a unique experience cultivated for you. That could be finding out interesting things about your Irish relatives when you go to Killarney. It could be finding out, right, things about your relatives in Spain, in Ireland, in France, different places. The idea is that you go and you experience it for the sake of what it is. I want us to really consider joy then as a critical pedagogy and radical imagination that builds on Morrisonian concept of the site of memory. This is also a quote from Toni Morrison. She talks about the site of memory. Where is the location of your memory? How joy lives in remembrance is often as resistance. How joy lives in our memory is often as resistance. To what was, to what ought to be, to what might be, to who we thought we were, and what it feels like to know that you are appreciated, seen, heard, and engaged, or embodied in knowledge. This is how I like to think about ASHE and our educational experience. So now is the turn to your neighbor part, the first turn to your neighbor part. I'm going to ask you to talk with each other very briefly about where in your learning journey did you last feel joy? Where in your learning journey did you last feel joy? Okay, just take a moment. Just discuss amongst yourselves. Turn to your neighbor, turn to somebody next to you. I want you to think about it. What do you think is better? If I just back away and we try it out?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Then I can bring the mic up. I brought the mic down.
Okay. I felt like it was wobbly and I didn't want to keep touching it. I won't touch it. and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Take a deep breath. And 5. Yes, exhale. Great. Great. How was that? Good. Did you explore, did you find some new information in yourself and in each other? Yeah? Good, good. I like watching your faces right now. It's good. Okay, good. Good, good, good. Okay, good. So, this is an exercise that I think we don't do often enough, and we could ask ourselves this question daily. We could ask ourselves this question weekly, right? We could ask ourselves this after any class. We could ask ourselves this any morning. I have a regular practice of prayer that includes invoking what better than I could have possibly imagined on a daily basis, right? May today be even better, even greater than I could have possibly imagined. Since I started doing that, it has clued me into more joy throughout every day. Because now every day I'm like, okay, this has been pretty good. What else? What could feel even better? What more could I learn? What other opportunities are there, right? And then the idea of connecting the actual exploration of joy in our learned experience with our memory, with intention. A lot of our memories, unfortunately, are still filled with this global pandemic thing and all the racial reckonings and all the ongoing and growing inequities that make it clearer what has long been true. We need to reimagine well-being, clearly. We just need to reimagine well-being, especially within the context of community building, education, and in global learning or study abroad in particular. So to this end, I am a big fan of what I like to think about as slow study abroad. Slow study abroad. There's a idea out there that when you study abroad in certain world locations, you just check them all off, right? You go as fast as possible. You see as much as you can. You use this opportunity that you have to be in these world regions and really pack it in. I want to really suggest the absolute opposite. The absolute opposite. Slowing it all the way down so that you can really experience what it is to walk, to ride, to take your time moving through the cities, moving through the communities that you're in. One of the things I've been so impressed by already, just in my short time here in this region, in this campus, in this community, is the extent to which the belief in community moves through everything and everyone. It's been palpable. It's been very interesting to be in a place where there is such a great sense of security, where there is so many references all around the campus. I haven't been to the other campus yet, so I can only speak to this one so far. I'm trying to say campuses, but yeah, let's be honest, one so far. The references to honeycombs, to hives, the images that are in the stained glass was so beautiful to think about this as a metaphor for you all as a community. Where I'm going with this is really kind of tying the connection between the ways in which we can be intentional about building the futures that we want, using the structures that we have inherited, right? To adjust those to fit the times that we're currently in. Using these honeycomb and hive ideas of really bringing more joy to everything that we do. I've had a lot of study abroad experiences, and you heard some of them in the intro. Some of them have been teaching, some of them have been as a learner. About 15 years ago, I was on a study break while I was teaching in Salzburg in Austria in the Global Learning Seminar, where I'm going again in a few days, so we've talked a little about that. Yeah, this is a really special place for me because it is somewhere that you're kind of removed in a way from the rest of the realities that we experience on a day-to-day basis, because you're living in a castle on a lake, and you are really just drinking in all that there is to learn about global citizenship. So in this space, we take big breaks and we walk around the town a little bit, go through the forest and try to, just really be grounded and experience more of nature. One day, I'm walking through the town, again, just really having a meditative kind of journey, and I start hearing North African music coming out of a record bar. Do you all know what a record bar is? Some people a little bit. Record shop, record bar, a place you buy these plastic things with lines on them, albums and what have you. It was that kind of a shop, right? And I was blown away. So Salzburg is a place that's usually associated with Mozart, right? Mozart and classical music. But here we were listening to the sounds of North Africa kind of pounding out of this place. And I started to pay much more attention now to the landscape. Who else is there? What else is there? It was the slowness. It was the taking timeness that allowed all of the complexities of the moment to sink in. This is not something that could be done on a fast study abroad journey. Of course, I went into the record bar. And the next thing I know, hours have passed. I've made friends who live there. I've made friends who are visiting there. I've gotten a whole new musical flavor, a whole new kind of sense of music that's coming out of North and West Africa. I never could have imagined finding in Salzburg, right? In a record bar. This is an example of that slow study abroad. We may have had a curriculum, we may have had intentions and agendas and all these things that we needed to cover. Those things are going to get done. But the more space we make in that journey, for being present with oneself, for taking those long walks, right? The greater the actual depth of experiences that we're having, the more we could talk about the world, meeting each other, coming to terms with each other, and being present with each other in these locations. Go to the next part here. So this is Salzburg. Snatching the joy of one does not bring joy to another. I think this is something that I really love the concept of, right? Yeah, this is taken from, I think, the angle of the museum there, the Contemporary Art Museum. This snatching the joy idea is something that I really like, because I think this is the current moment that we're in. I think some of the issues that we're facing right now, politically, publicly, are coming from this idea, this is scarcity mentality, right? I'm joyful over here. I gotta somehow protect my joy by making sure you don't have any. And that's not how joy works, right? Joy is contagious. Joy is contagious. Joy is contagious. When you laugh, I laugh, right? When you smile, I smile, right? But we act as though trying to take it from someone else is gonna somehow empower us, and it doesn't. It actually weakens us. Joy is a thing also that we use in the Ayurvedic tradition to know when we are at the edge of wellness. Wellness is a predictor, our joy is a predictor of our wellness, right? We often kind of look at it as an after effect, like, okay, well, I went to the doctor and so I feel better. Doesn't really work like that. It's more, where have you centered your joy so that the possibility of feeling better can find you? Yeah? So this moves us into the global learning body, which is, I think, a concept that may be a little bit weird for some of us, but I thought about this in a couple of different ways. So at first, I was working on this at the level of the connection and well-being. I was given some prompts that had all these things to do with crisis and like disconnection. And I'm like, that's not the world I live in. I live in a world where we actually connect with each other with intention. I live in a world where our purpose is to connect, not to disconnect from one another. We hear this so much, right? We hear so much about people feeling isolated, feeling separate. All we have to do sometimes is recenter the appreciation for well-being for one another, and that also begins to shift within us and in others. So this global learning body concept is the idea that the idea of learning as embodied, as a relational and ancestral practice, learning itself as embodied, relational, ancestral. It is something that goes beyond the mind. The global learning body is something that goes beyond the mind. It involves the whole self learning. It is education as both a global and a spiritual practice, I hadn't planned to talk to you about this part today, but I think it feels like the right thing to do, so I'm going to do it. One of the reasons why I studied abroad so early in life, in middle school, is because I broke most of my bones. I usually say all of them, but like there were some that didn't break, so I've tried to revise it over time. But yeah, like all the big ones, like both my arms, my legs, my feet, all my toes, like all the stuff that's like on the outside of my body, right? Like the limbs, all those parts, all the stuff that make you like move through the world. And yeah, technically, I guess it was probably a kind of bad thing, at least for my parents, right? I was okay, but I was so hurt that I don't really remember most of the hurt part. I just remember waking up and wanting the French fries that were in the car when the car hit itself. I'm sharing this with you now to say part of what was happening, I was so disconnected from hurt. My focus was just on the life that I had and the life I was going to have after this. That's all my attention went to, was what is the life I'm going to have after this? So I asked my French teacher to bring me applications to study abroad. Now, again, everything is broken, right? I'm in the hospital bed talking to my teacher. It's like, no, it's okay. You bring my homework. I had a cast on one arm and a Hoffman device on the other. And I'm like, I'll figure it out. I learned how to write with my left hand so that I could do my homework and apply for the study abroad program. People literally, if I asked them for anything, I need ice cream and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Somebody's going to bring me ice cream because it was dire, y'all. It was pretty bad, right? So I think my teacher was really just thinking she was humoring me. But the reality was, I knew that if I had some joy to focus on and something else to focus on, I would walk again. I would use my arms again. And also, I had all kinds of people praying for me. Sorry, microphone, I apologize. I had all kinds of people praying for me every day. And there were rabbis who would come to the hospital. There were imams who would come to the hospital. There were priests who would come to the hospital. There were preachers, reverends, people I did not know. But the community of faith was really strong. Again, I decided I was going to study abroad. I was going to go to France. I learned how to write, like I said, with my left hand. Figure out this application. I got my teacher to send it off. My parents were sitting there like, just let her, just go ahead, because she's not going anywhere, right? Just indulge the kid. But I applied, I got in, and they tell me, sorry, but we don't have any more scholarships for France. I'm like, but I'm in a wheelchair. Like, I'm trying to go. They had a scholarship to send me to Italy. I told my parents I'm going to Italy. They said, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. Well, okay, if you can walk without your cane, you can walk without your crutches, you can go. Fine. So I figured it out. I get to Italy and they're cobblestones. So this was like, yeah, right? We need information. To be a good traveler, to be a joyful traveler, you need information. Cobblestones and you, honey, with this no, cobblestones and the crutches? Nah. I'm just gonna say it now. Nah. Those are just bad combination of things. Cobblestones and a body that's just trying to figure its way out again, maybe not the best combination of things, but I knew that I needed this experience. I knew that in order to rebuild myself, to figure out who I was going to be in the world, I needed to get out into the world and experience it and just figure it out. Every day was a figuring it out. Every day was, okay, how much can I walk now? How much can I do today? What needs to happen? And so when I talk about the global learning body, I literally mean us as a community, but also our bodies in global learning, right? I'm sharing this with you now because sometimes in the work I do, again, in the acronym soup of things that we like to throw acronyms at all kinds of positions and people in the world these days who do interesting work. So there are people who will put throw those three letters I didn't say earlier on me often, the D and the I once, the ones like, yeah. And I want to be very clear that, again, this is about our sense of ASHE and our sense of the global learning body as a whole body. So I am not only one thing. This is where I'm going with this. We are not only one thing, right? I may be a person of the African diaspora. I may also be a person in a body that has invisible disabilities, right? I'm also a person who has to navigate the world through a lens that people do not see regularly. People will drag me up and downstairs all the time, and I have to choose in any given moment. Do I tell them? Do I not tell them? If we're going to go to a different country, are we going to talk about wheelchairs, or are we not going to talk about wheelchairs? We're going to talk about wheelchairs. We're going to talk about wheelchairs. We're going to talk about crutches because they're real. They're part of our lives, right? We have to own that. So I want to impress upon you the need to really consider, as we're building programs, as we're in classes with one another, as you're encouraging your friends, oh, you should study abroad, you should go here, you should go there. First of all, not saying, well, don't go to a place with cobblestones of your things, but just recognize it could be a challenge. So be prepared for it, right? I went anyway, and I'm grateful that I did because I know how to navigate them now, right? There are places that people tell me all the time, you cannot go there in a wheelchair. And I'm like, well, let's find out. Let's see. Did you go in a wheelchair? No. Okay, great. Then let's find out together, right? So that we can really begin to dismantle this idea that the world and its precarity is something that is only for certain people. The function of freedom is to free someone else. The function of freedom is to free someone else. And every time we get free, every time we get ourselves a little bit freer, we get ourselves a little more free, we are in the act of freeing someone else from something that they don't even know they're being held back from sometimes. Yeah? That's part of what I'm going with this. The global learning body is a concept, the collective and individual self in motion across borders, across disciplines, across identities. It allows us to connect, to integrate, and to braid our consciousness, to braid our lived experiences together. I love Robert Sobukwe as a leader, as a scholar, as a thinker. You all know who Robert Sobukwe is? He's somebody who was a revolutionary in South Africa. He was imprisoned on Robben Island with Nelson Mandela. Those of you that are going to Stellenbosch, you're going to Cape Town, you're going to South Africa, may get a chance to visit Robben Island at some point. It's weird to visit a prison. It's weird, but it's important, right? It's important history to see. Seeing Robert Sobukwe's house, I'd been to Robben Island several times, and people always point out, Mandela's cell, and they point out two different parts along the journey. Seeing Robert Sobukwe's house was one of the most moving experiences for me on Robben Island because he was an educator. Robert Sobukwe is who encouraged and supported the young people of Soweto to fight against being forced to only learn Afrikaans in school. These young people in 1976 understood at that time that English would be a language that would give them access to the world. And I want to be careful as I'm saying this because I'm definitely not saying English only. Let's be real clear. On camera, on all the I did not say English only, right? I'm saying as a language of the world, to have access to the world. Young African citizens in South Africa in 1976, through the guidance of Dr. Robert Sobukwe, said, yes, you need a global education. You need to understand yourselves in the world and so have access to this. When you go there and you see his house is like way over there, like I don't know Minneapolis geography, but I think I could safely say like picture like St. Cloud in relationship to where we are. That feels safe, right? It's not close. And it was by himself. And you think about the value of us as learners. We know, this community knows this. As learners, as scholars, as thinkers, we need each other. You need to be in community with one another. The most damaging thing you could do to an educator like Robert Sobukwe is send him out there to that place like I'm talking about in St. Cloud. Right? Put him far away, separate him from others. Because the danger, what made Robert Sobukwe so dangerous was his thinking and his teaching. His pedagogy is what was feared. His mind is what was feared, yeah? We can't separate ourselves from this history. We need to own and move forward with it. So this global learning body is one that is brought together by lots of different pieces. I like the metaphor of braiding also because it connects me back to kind of the traditional culture of these different strands that kind of combine to form new ways of thinking. So also in this global learning body, we could define it this way through Tony K. Bambara, who, again, I'm sorry, I am a literary scholar, so I'm gonna keep giving y'all names. I'm gonna keep asking about them. Don't worry, it's okay if you haven't heard of them. I'm just keep giving to me anyway. So Tony K. Bambara is a novelist, a younger novelist than Toni Morrison. She wrote this here: Wellbeing, intercultural awareness, and integrity are all a part of the global learning body's transformative braiding. I didn't know that. When I came up with the idea of the global learning body, I didn't know that Tony K. Bambara had used it already in a sentence. I also didn't know that she had thought about it in terms of this transformative braiding concept, which I really, really love. A million years ago in my dissertation writing, I worked on this idea of braiding as a theoretical construct. A lot of us take it for granted, right? You take three things. We all know how to braid. People know how to braid. I'm not saying we know how to do it well. Right? We know what it is. You take three strands of anything and you intertwine them. The strongest points of any braid are the things that come together. You can make a braid from one thing. You can also gather many things. It could be a concept. It could be a singular idea. So when we take this idea and we flesh it out a little bit further in terms of this global learning pathway, you could consider these three things: integrating culture, developing awareness, and braiding integrity, as three things that are being braided in our process of learning together. Right? That's kind of what we're doing here. We are intentionally kind of taking these different strands of our identity, these different strands of our beliefs, these different strands of our cultures, these different strands of our experiences, and we're braiding them into something unique and new. Those of you that are going to be studying abroad are adding a particular strain to what you're braiding. You're adding a particular thread to your braid that is unique, that is going to create more unique structures than if you literally only stayed home. The ways we change the world are entangled with the ways that we understand it intentionally. One of the other things that Tony K. Bambara said that I really appreciate in this context is that the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. The role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. I'm not trying to be particularly provocative here, but the idea of revolution, joy is a revolution, right? To make it irresistible. That's what I want to make irresistible to you all today. The idea that we can, as artists, as scholars, as thinkers, embrace this in a way that really lifts us up and is completely irresistible to others. I believe that the same applies for educators and healers. We have to make this joy as irresistible as possible. This means our classrooms have to be full of laughter. Not all the time, but some, right? It means that we have to be intentional about how we greet each other on the walkways. That's one of the things I've loved today. Just little, but I love that today. Walking around campus, so we saw somebody, hi, right? I don't have to know you, but we can say hi to each other. There are places where people take that for granted that doesn't happen. It is a beautiful thing to recognize how we are integrated together. These revolutionary thinkers, Sobukwe, Kate Bambara, the revolution always begins with the self and in the self first. One of the most beautiful lines of Assata Shakur's autobiography, again, I'm sorry, quiz time. Assata Shakur, y'all know Assata Shakur? You've heard of her? Okay, great. Assata Shakur is a revolutionary who was a Black Panther who currently, well, I won't tell you where she is. I'll say that she was exiled to Cuba many, many years ago. Some people say she's still there. I've met her. So I'm just saying she's an amazing, amazing, amazing thinker, scholar, writer. Her autobiography is called Assata, and in it she talks about how we never think about how revolutionaries are made. We just accept them as they are, right? She's like, I didn't fall from a tree. You know, wasn't born a revolutionary. I was just born. And then I had all these extraordinary experiences. And this is the person you get to meet now, right? So you all have that. You all are part of that same legacy. Everybody in this room, right, has the capacity to be a revolutionary because we're starting with the self. We start with the self first and then understand how that magnifies larger. We're making a greater impact. And also from Bambara, right? We can't have an effect on anything unless we have an effect on ourselves. This is really where the center of this joy framework is coming from. There's a concept that I'm going to share with you here. I'm just kind of looking back a little bit because I skipped something I wanted to share with you a minute ago. I'm just going to say it like this. There's this way in which the things that influence us as younger people sometimes come back to us later in life, and we don't realize why that's going to happen, right? I've mentioned Southern Africa quite a bit in this conversation today, right? The journeying there in different kinds of ways, living in Zimbabwe, etc. I chose Southern Africa as a home when I was 10 because I was appalled by the differences in how young people in the part of Pittsburgh I was living in were experiencing life and not really finding their voice, where the young people in South Africa that I've already mentioned to you, right, are finding their voice in these really extraordinary ways. I went to schools where we had banned books. I'm not going to tell you what decade, but I will say in the 1900s. Right? And so I went to schools that had a lot of banned books. I had heard about this one book, and it set me on a quest for many, many years after it. This book was called I Write What I Like. Oh, you talk about revolutionary, right? I write what I like. It's by Stephen Biko. Stephen Biko was, right? Yeah, hero, revolutionary to a lot of the young people in South Africa. Once I found the name of this book and I found it was banned in my library, I had to find it, right? If you say I can't have it, I gotta have it. Of course, I eventually find it. And what this book really talks about is really, again, the power of a liberatory learning, the power of liberatory education, the possibility of being able to see yourself as an active agent in your education journey, and to recognize education as a liberatory strategy, education, pedagogy as a liberatory strategy, right? So this piece brings me then to thinking about how profound it can be to understand our humanity as scholars, the ways in which our own lived experience can deepen this connection to well-being for each other. So as we deepen the intercultural curriculum, deepening the intercultural curriculum brings about healing, harmony, and healthy community practices. By healthy community practices, I'm not saying that we all have to drink wheatgrass. We don't. Wheatgrass isn't healthy for everybody. It's healthy for certain bodies, but not everybody, right? I'm saying, what is healthy community practices? Let's just get a sense in the room, if we can just lift up a few of those. What do we think some of the healthy community practices might be here? Experienced a few of them already today. What are some healthy community practices that we can be intentional about? Prayer, kindness, compassion, open-heartedness, an intentional appreciation for each other's well-being, right? Intentional appreciation for each other's well-being. Are there others that you all coming to mind? Respect for one another's viewpoints, appreciation of difference. Anything coming up for anyone? You're like, she didn't say that though.
A lot about listening.
Yes. Yes. Listening more than talking, listening and hearing, because they're not always the same, right? Listening and being intentional about hearing. Thank you for that. Learning is recognized as a fundamental human right in cities like Cape Town, Buenos Aires, Rome, Tokyo, London. These are chosen on purpose. I know that's where you all are going. Yes, these are where your programs are going. And I just thought it was so interesting to think about that, right? That learning, I won't get into US politics. I promise I won't. I'll just leave it here and say what it says on the screen, right? Learning, I don't know, departments of education recognized as fundamental human rights in cities like Cape Town, Buenos Aires, Rome, Tokyo, London, right? So this is the thing to think about. Like, how are the young people, how are the people learning in the other places that you're going to? What is the importance of learning in these places? So often in our study abroad and our global learning journey, we're thinking about our own experiences, not necessarily what we're going to be gaining and contributing to the societies that we're going into. Okay, I'm going to pause on this one. I'm going to go here first and bring this up this way. So again, like I said already, well-being is not just it's not just self-care. It's what's underneath the self-care, and this is the concept I want to bring up quickly as we bring this part to a close and we open up for more dialogue. There's this idea of under the bridge. Under the bridge is what I wanted to also share with you. This idea of under the bridge. What is under the bridge? We use the phrasing a lot in study abroad land, as I like to think about it, right? Of building bridges, right? We even talk about it in internships. Well, you need a good internship so you can learn how to build bridges. Okay, that's all great. Yeah, build the bridges, but does anyone here study bridge building? Any engineers in the room? Architects? Okay, that's cool. I studied a little bit, so I'm gonna share. I just asked because, I don't want to tell people stuff they already know. Like half the room is like, oh, I already study architecture. I know you're going with this. The best bridges, right? The best bridges, the most secure bridges, the bridges we trust, somebody went and looked at the ground that they're built on. Or the water that they stand in. Somebody went and measured that. Somebody went and thought about what's underneath that bridge. What's going to go under it? What could go over it if necessary, right? But let's just work on the under the bridge part. A lot of us live in communities or may visit communities where there are spaces under bridges that were maybe even suggested not go into, right? It could be dangerous under there. What's under that bridge? We don't know. It's trepidatious. But also in some places, you'll find slogans, political slogans under bridges. Both parties often, if they're two, there could be more. Political slogans right under bridges. You'll often find under bridge spaces as places where creativity lives, where permissions flow freely, where people have greater permissions in a society, often under bridges. I want us to think about this both metaphorically and literally, right? What is under the bridges that we're building? What is under the bridges that we're building as we engage in global learning more? So this concept is both a metaphor and kind of call to action to really consider. The undercurrents under a bridge can be intergenerational, historical, emotional, cultural. These are the unseen forces. What's under the bridge is often the unseen forces. These could include traumas, right? Sometimes under the bridges we're building are traumas. Let's think about US-Japan relations. There's some stuff under that bridge, right? There's some stuff under that bridge. And we need to look at it. We need to look at it. We need to be able to understand it together and talk about it together and share it together so that we can heal and grow from it together. When you're standing on one side of the bridge, you can't usually, in a lot of cases, see what's really on the other side of that bridge, depending on, the scale and the shape and all that, right? But you often can't see all the nuances of what's on the other side of that bridge. The same holds true if we're talking about intercultural relations. The same holds true if we're talking about intercultural competencies. I may be on this side of that bridge if it's a particular country, and you may be on that side of the bridge, but we haven't really thought about the things that unite us. And so I really want us to think about what is underneath that bridge. What is underneath the bridges that we're building? It's language, definitely, is under there. Sometimes it's also displacement. Sometimes it's some inherited resilience. Sometimes it's inherited resentment. Sometimes it is systemic oppression. Sometimes it's liberation. And sometimes it's joy. So as we begin to build more joy, braid more joy into our educational practices, we get to create new stories. And that's kind of where this invitation is going to go into. We're going to think about how we can breathe more deeply, more regularly, more intentionally on purpose, remain present with one another. I also use this concept of under the bridge to create some space between what we see and what we don't see, even in our interpersonal relationships. I'm bringing this up to say sometimes there are things underneath a bridge. It could be between you and your professor, you and your student or whatever, some element of discomfort. Every time there's some element of discomfort, I think it's something worth looking at, something worth investigating. Don't just leave it as discomfort. Recognize it, see it as what it is, and then kind of discover it together. That's part of the remaining present with one another. Sometimes we kind of leap to a judgment, we leap to a decision on a thing. We haven't been present enough to see where is it going? Why are we doing it this way? What is underneath that bridge? How do we find more joy in our learning together? And we want to move away from the extractive learning modalities we want to move away from extractive learning modalities with the intention of moving more into braided relationships. So away from the extractive relationships and into more of braided relationships, so that we can see braiding again as a co-created experience, not something that is about consumption, but more about the literal intentional connecting of people and places to each other and to a future. So our global learning body is in motion. It is something that is constantly moving. It is something that we are getting to continually add to and develop. In this point, I want to suggest that we think about joy also as an act of return. Joy also as an act of return to the self, to our communities, and to possibility. Joy as a return to possibility. So as we close this part, and we move into some questions and some conversation, more of a question, more conversation, I want to leave you with this idea of your agency as unlimited. Your agency is unlimited. We often are kind of told other things about it, but I think this is also where our joy comes from. The minute that I began to recognize and appreciate my joy more, the more permissions I had in life to experience more ways in which my agency was unlimited. We were in the airport yesterday. I was in the airport yesterday with a lot of Minnesotans. A lot of Minnesotans. It was like 2 planes full, like, because all the planes were delayed. So it was just like we were a wing in the airport, right? And no, maybe they weren't all from here, but everybody was trying to get here. And, this is one of those moments where it could have tension, it could have lots of things in it. But every moment that passed, I'm like, oh, great. There's more time for this. There's more time for that. At one moment, I got a lovely call from my host here who said, listen, it's okay. This is how we're going to adjust. And I was so delighted about the experience. I get to learn more about the place. I get to take my time. The people were sitting around me were like, lady, the plane is delayed. I said, I know. Tell me more about where you come from. I'm like, what? It's a choice. That's why I'm saying this to you. It's a choice. It is a deliberate choice. I could have chosen to be upset, but what good was I going to do? The plane is still going to be delayed, right? I could spend the next hour, 2 hours, 3. Okay, it was 12 hours. I really did get to the airport at 12:30, and I really did reach the hotel at 12:30, and I was like, it was a 3-hour flight. But that's okay. It's okay. It's okay, right? Because it's always a matter of choice. That's where I'm going with this. In that moment, and I say this to myself all the time, right? In this now moment, this is how I phrase it to myself all the time. In this now moment, what choice will I make? In this now moment, what choice will I make? In this now moment, I choose joy. And I want to invite you all to think about this as you move through your lives, as you move through the things that are going to keep coming up, whether it is in your study abroad journey, your on-campus journey, choosing again to focus on the joy and the ways in which our agency can be unlimited together. So now this call to action. I want you to recognize, of course, you are not alone, right? You are not alone. We've talked about this already. Our agency is not unlimited. You're not alone. You are worthy to be seen. You are worthy to be heard. You are worthy to be sat with, to be walked beside. Even in your quietest moments, you are worthy of witness, to have witnesses to your journey, to your experience. And this is where we're going to connect. We're going to commit to braiding our joy, integrity, and intercultural understanding to the very fabric of education, fostering well-being across borders and in our communities. Really quick. I'm just going to ask you all, quick action plan, each of us. Can we choose 3 things in our lives that we want to braid with some intention so that we can build more joyful futures? Just each of us. Take a moment, put it in your notes. You have a phone, you have a notepad somewhere. Just 3 things. What are 3 things that you might be braiding in your life to make sure that you have greater joy in your lived experience? 3 things. Could be you're going to walk, you're going to eat lettuce, joy, or you're going to eat that dessert every other day. Every other day, I said, not every day. Whatever that is. Okay, and again, as you think about those things, I just want to say, we're going to open up for questions, comments, conversation with you more. I really want to encourage you to remember that this was not a lecture. This was not about lecturing you about anything. This is much more about a call to reclaim our joy, to resist our fragmentation, to intentionally resist our fragmentation, to hopefully bring us closer to one another and closer to the ideals that we're trying to practice in our global learning journeys, and to return to, ultimately, the wisdom that lives in our bones. To return to the wisdom that lives in our bones. You, again, as I said already, you are not alone. Your ancestors dreamed you here. Your ancestors dreamed you here. Let's recognize our agency as unlimited and bring the joy back together. And with that, I'm going to ask you to just chant with me really quick. Super simple chant, super simple chant. Just 3 words. We're going to say them 3 times. Well, okay, 4 words. Peace, peace, perfect peace. Okay? So take a deep breath. And exhale completely. Ready? Inhaling. Peace, peace, perfect peace. Again, peace, peace, perfect peace. I think one more time. Friend in the back? My Nike friend in the back? We need one more time, right? Okay, good. Ready? Peace, peace, perfect peace. Thank you. Thank you. Step away dramatically.
Thank you so much. And we have, I think, students who will be walking around with microphones right now for anyone who has questions. And so we'd like to open it up now to questions from the audience.
And I'm open to the questions that aren't really questions, but they're comments too. Either one are fine. Prefer questions, but either are fine. Yep.
What is something you're planning right now that you're really looking forward to that's bringing you joy that's in your future yet?
Wow, great question. So, one of the things that I do to support the community of global learners is create retreats around the world, global learning retreats around the world, especially for women who run global learning programs, because it's a lot of work. So the next one of those, I plan a series of those, and they are alternating years. Western hemisphere, and then far away is how I usually describe the other one. So the next one is coming up in Zanzibar in July. And so I'm working on a lot of different kind of programs in Tanzania and Zanzibar and planning this retreat. I love to hold space for people. I love to hold space for learners and for leaders. And so I'm really looking forward to that one and growing those. So it'll be Zanzibar in July of 25, and then we go back to Jamaica again in 26, and it's kind of alternate. And then also Brazil in 26. Yep. Thanks for the question.
Keshia, while they're thinking, I'm going to ask you a question. So you have 2 groups of students in here tonight. You have some students who have studied abroad and have maybe recently returned, and a group of students who are preparing to go abroad. And my question is twofold. What advice do you have for the students who have come back from studying abroad to maintain the joy of their experience now that they're back here? And what advice do you have for students who are preparing to study abroad so that they can be more present to that joy?
Great. Thank you for those questions, Kevin. I think one of the big parts for the people who come back, I thought about you all a lot as I was preparing this. Excuse me, because I think a lot of times when we go away and we come back, we think everybody's going to be happy for us, and we think it's going to be like an easy thing to talk about, and some people don't care, and then that hurts, and like we feel bad about it. So part of it is to, again, remember that this is your journey. Those of you that have come back, this is your journey, and it's not over yet. Just because you've returned doesn't mean the learning that you went abroad to get has ended. You're now in a new phase of learning more, deepening and enriching that experience even more. And so I think one of the great ways to maintain that joy is not necessarily to look for it in the people who haven't had the same kind of experiences as you, but more to look for people who are excited about having similar experiences. So I think one of the big things is finding platforms to talk about it more, finding platforms to write about your experience more, and especially the nuances of things that maybe nobody else thought about before. Something I didn't mention earlier, I went to a women's college. So I went to an all women's college, Spelman College in Atlanta. And I didn't know when I went to the University of Zimbabwe, it literally never crossed my mind that my classes were going to be all men. I was like, where's everybody at? You know, it was a really strange experience for me as a woman from an all women's college, right? And so this is a nuance even to that experience I have only really started talking about in the last couple of years. And like I said, that was like light years ago, right? But I'm talking about it more now to people who are curious about different genders in education together and what does that look like. So I think the big thing is to really find people who are excited about the places that you've been, the experiences you've been to, and write about them, share them more broadly. I don't just mean on the social media platforms. I mean also in your academic work as well. Use it in your academic work. Use it in conversations with interviews. Use it all over the place, because sometimes it's only the people who haven't done it who have yet to cultivate an appreciation for it, right? So some of that is also planting those seeds. And on the other side, those of you that are preparing to go abroad and might be in some of the fear stage, because that's a real thing too, right? There's a fear stage after we've committed to it. There's a whole like, yeah, what am I going to eat? Right? It comes up for a lot of people. Like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to do for the day? Right? So I think there's only so much research you can do that's like researchy. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be like using a non-academic term, but really, like, there's the version of like, we're going to go online, we're going to do some Googling, we're going to ask people, da, 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 da. But there's your personal experience that you need to have. And I know that I talked about a lot about writers and different authors and scholars, but that's also because for me, this was the way to see the world. It really helped me to see new possibilities in every country I was going to, through novels, through short stories, through poetry even. And so I want to encourage you, especially those of you who may think, no, I don't want to read another novel. Try though, like try reading some of the literature from these places, because what you're also getting is not just the novel or not just the story, but also a worldview. You're getting an insight into how do we think in Ireland? How do we think in Korea? Right? What are some of the ways in which this gets expressed through the literature? So I think being joyful about new explorations in it, recognizing the fear. That's a thing. It may sound weird, but I think part of the way we experience our joy is by recognizing our fear, right? When you can see it, you can label it, you can give it a name, you can identify it. After that, it's all gravy. Like, oh, I was afraid of what I was going to eat. I could say it. Well, I wasn't, because I eat a lot of things. But let's just say, right, if that was a fear, right, and I'm a student who's maybe studying abroad for the first time, I may be concerned. I'm going to pick somewhere where there could be stereotypes about food in particular places, right? I'm not sure. The minute I can say that, now I've opened up the conversation. Now you can tell me, because you've been there before, oh, no, it's not like that though. We ate, etc. Right? We ate all these wonderful foods. Even thinking about like kind of food sustainability, being able to learn more about a place by sharing it. That's where I'm going with that, right? So acknowledge it. Don't run from it. Really acknowledge it. And then talk to each other. So those of you who have gone can really help the others who have yet to experience this, not necessarily, again, through your personal lived experience, but more through the insights and the awarenesses of things that you learned while you were abroad that maybe somebody else hasn't thought about yet. Yeah? How did you move there? What was that like? Yeah. Yes.
What small thing did you actively do while you were abroad that proved most valuable to you?
Learn how to open coconuts. Yeah. I learned how to handle the machete and cut and open coconuts. Don't do it. Don't do it. Not the machete part, students. I'm sorry. I forgot health and safety rules. You're not supposed to do those things. But you're not. I mean, it's a whole cultural thing. So I really and truly, I like natural foods a lot. I like fasting a lot. I like to kind of get into nature a lot and really experience what grows in a place. And living in Trinidad and Jamaica, there's coconuts, coconut trees, there's coconut water, and them things are like $5 each if you have to buy a coconut from the vendor. So I decided I was going to learn. And this wasn't just, it's a small thing, but this is why I'm telling you the story this way. It sounds like a small thing, right? Open coconuts. In order to learn how to properly handle a cutlass, I didn't know that women don't do that in Jamaica. I didn't know. But I was so excited to learn. I went to the hardware store. I got my cutlass, and then I showed back up in the village all excited with this cutlass. And the elder men in the village were like, no ma'am, come here. And I got to hold counsel with elder men. This is not a thing that young women do in Jamaica. I got to hold counsel with older men who taught me how to take care of a cutlass, how to sharpen it, how to oil it, how to carry it. They taught me stories about cutlasses. I'm just trying to open a coconut, right? But I get all this from it. And then I become expert at coconuts. I can now take myself to the market. By the time I moved to Trinidad and Tobago, I'm going to the market in the mornings with the market people, like the people who market, bring their vegetables and their produce. I get a sack on my back. I'm walking my way up to the hill. I could barter with the coconut vendors for how many I wanted at a good price. Not good, now I have a sense of confidence about my coconuts now, right? I could barter with the best of them. And it was always the thing that became even more gendered because people would say, "Oh, women here they don't open those. Can you, oh, lady, you want to buy some coconuts? Great, I'll help you. It's okay. I can carry them home myself. Thank you very much. And I can cut it myself too. Yep. I did get in trouble with my cutlass in my backpack going through Kingston, but I just don't do that. Yeah. Yeah. Great. It was a great experience. Just don't carry your cutlass in your backpack.
Are there any final questions from our group? Okay, Jeff, we'll give the final one.
It's a lot of pressure. I loved your story about slow study abroad and learning about hearing West African music in Salzburg.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about, I have taken students on study abroad multiple times, but even in my own experience, what I love, and it's Japan, learning about something that I would never have imagined learning about through Japan. And maybe it's a Chinese folktale or stumbling upon an amazing Philly cheesesteak restaurant in Nihonbashi. And to be able to share that with Japanese colleagues was one of the highlights of my fall. But I'm wondering, because you mentioned this particular example, is it that finding that random or aleatory thing in your experience that is the kernel of slow study abroad, or is it something else?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. I think it's a both and. I think sometimes we design really wonderful programs, right? And as a program designer, program leader, right? We design all these different cultural elements. We design all these learning experiences. Students, hello, learning experiences. I know we're focused often on the travel part, but learning experience. Like we really think about all of that. And sometimes we've even really been thoughtful in our design about the space, like leaving space for the students, everybody to have their own experiences. But what we also, I think, kind of walk a fine line on is where we've made space for students, for participants to have their own experience, and then also for them to have experiences with us that aren't about us being the professor, that aren't about us being the teacher, that aren't about us actually being the program leader, but just like observing us in life, right? And us observing them in life. If there's an us and a them in the study abroad landscape, right? Being able to observe and witness and experience each other in life. So I definitely think some of the most transformative and important intercultural engagements that I've had in different countries have been in these random moments, these moments of walking up the road and, oh, there's a pub and it's really loud, but it's the World Cup. And so let's go in there, right? Not with students, don't drink, you don't, not that part. I'm talking about the cultural part of the World Cup, being able to really experience the World Cup in South Africa while they're playing, right? I'm not a soccer fan. It's soccer, right? Yeah, I'm not. It's that bad. Like it could have been baseball, and I still would have been saying World Cup. But it's the joy of the cultural moment, being able to experience that cultural moment with people in community that only really does come from the intentional making of enough space to fall into it, right? You need to make enough space to fall into some circumstances that may be unique and unusual, whether it be for you or for your students. So definitely, I think it's a both and. I think, you need to make space for it, appreciate it, and live in it, strive in it. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. I think with that, Keshia, we'll probably bring a close to this evening, but I just want to say how appreciative we are for you to have come in. Is this your first trip to Minnesota?
This is my first trip to this part of Minnesota.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're honored to welcome you here, and also, just a very quick reflection. We spent a lot of time, as you talked about, building programs and trying to build programs well and think about learning and health and safety and things like that. But I think you were reminded us of something that's very, very important, and that global learning is a human right, and that we do it not just because it's cool, but because it's important for people to engage and to build those braided connections that you've talked about. And so Thank you so much for taking time on your global travel to stop here in Collegeville and St. Joseph. Keshia will be with us tomorrow for the faculty workshop, and so I'm just so glad that you'll have a chance to engage with our faculty. But thank you for coming and sharing your insights and your wisdom with us. And if we could just give her one more round of applause. Thank you so much.